93.3 WMMR Audio on Demand presents the Preston and Steve Show podcast.
The no secret, Steve and I love the Monkees. We've talked about that many, many times.
Absolutely.
Over the years. And so many great songs, obviously, like this one. And our next guest is going to be singing the National Anthem at the Phillies game on Sunday. I'm going to play you a little clip of my favorite song that he sings, just because if you've never heard this, it's a deeper Monkees track.
Yeah. The stuff that they recorded that was their own material is every bit as good.
But this song is it's a vocal obstacle course, and he does it so well. But listen to this.
I wish I had another drink. I wouldn't be so hard to sing. I should have taken time to think. Besides, I got the picture straight. You must have had another date. I didn't need this extra way to wish that I could see the way to show. I don't want no more going down.
Just a little bit more of this.
And now I see the left lady slip it all away. I made a should have learned to swim instead of now. It's really got me stuff. I can't believe it. Why I jump a life again. But tell me, Papa, can't believe they drink this stuff in town. This Johnny Brown going down.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Micky Dolenz to the show. Hey, Mickey, how you doing?
Wow.
Yeah. Listen.
I'm good.
You are
good.
Can you still pull off Going Down? Because I've seen you do it before, and that's got to be such a hard song to sing.
I do it every night.
Wow.
Every night in my show. Whenever I do a show, yeah, I do it all the time. But I do it slightly differently. I go, floating down the river A funny quick story. When I first went in to record that song, it was a track that we'd done, and we had Diane Hildebrand write some lyrics. And I went in to routine it, and I started singing it against the track like that, floating down the river. She said, no, it's twice as fast.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It was
a great tune.
I was refamiliarized with it when I saw it on Breaking Bad a few years ago. It was in it was in a meth making session, and I was like, oh my God! I'm like, I forgot how awesome this song was. So it's got to be cool when you guys will see your material continue to surface after all these years. You know,
it does. I mean, it is. It is very gratifying. The writer of that episode, who had put it in the script and in the show, a guy named Thomas Schnauz, one of the executive producers, writers of Breaking Bad, and now, of course, Better Call Saul. He got in touch, and I thanked him for putting the song in the show. Now we became really good friends.
I have to tell you, I've become sort of addicted to this documentary I've watched over and over again called The Wrecking Crew, about the super L.A. musicians, the studio musicians that helped shape basically all the great music we were hearing in the 60s and 70s. And you are a staunch advocate for what they achieved as well.
Oh, absolutely. I thought that it was about time that they got credit, credit where credit is due. And a lot of them became very good friends, including, of course, Glenn Campbell.
Yeah.
He played on my first recording session before the Monkees.
Wow. What was it like working with those guys? Because, like you and you obviously, music is important. It's critical to your livelihood and so many other things. But those guys hanging around and girls as well, discussing creating music and discussing that whole thing. It's something that it's got to be cool to be part of that brotherhood.
Well, it was. They were obviously the consummate studio cats, but there's always been studio cats around. Yeah. They just never got so much credit for it. And it was wonderful watching and playing with them, too, at times, because very often we would play along with, studio cats, like everybody did, as you now know from watching the documentary. And Hal Blaine and Earl Palmer were constantly trying to help me out and give me tips when I was learning to play the drums, because as you probably know, I was a guitar player.
Yeah.
But they cast me as the wacky drummer, and I worked very hard at it, being a wacky drummer.
And you were a damn fine wacky drummer.
Yeah, right. So it was wonderful. But, you know, I guess in any part of the business, it was great hanging out with great directors, great writers, great songwriters, like you were mentioning Carole King and Jerry Goff, and, of course, Boyce and Hart.
Yeah.
Neil Diamond. For instance, I'm singing I'm a Believer at a Neris salute to Neil Diamond in a couple of weeks.
Ah, very cool.
And yeah, and of course it's wonderful.
Well, when you were at that time, when you were walking around the halls, we get the impression, like, you know, Dave Grohl did the Sound City documentary as well, and the recording studios like that, and, you know, when the record industry was more robust and everything, it seemed like those places were beehives of activity, and studios like that, there seemed to be, you know, you'd pass somebody in the hall who was an iconic musician. Was that the vibe? Was that what it was like?
Absolutely. And you just drift from one, studio room to another, and I don't ever remember there being a sign on the door that said "closed set" or
Wow.
"closed session."
Yeah.
Closed session. I don't remember that happening. But as you say, it was a very, very different business and a very, very different vibe at that time.
Mickey, I was reading a quote from you yesterday. You and Mike Nesmith have been touring the Monkees present the Mike and Mickey tour. A few shows were canceled. Mike is sick. Is it anything to be overly concerned about, or do you really know anything?
Well, not that I know of.
Okay.
I don't actually have many details, but I know he is being treated, and as far as I know, it's all treatable and doable.
Okay.
But anything further than that, I'm sort of leaving it up to him to make any sort of statement or references.
Okay.
Mike had to have been ahead of his time, because I didn't see anybody wearing the knit cap, the toque, if you will, before he did, as just a daily, fashion piece.
Yeah,
Was
yeah.
that his idea, or did the showrunner say, "Hey, you know what? We're going to put this goofy hat on you"?
No, it was totally him.
Huh.
Totally his. Yeah, absolutely. Totally his idea, because I remember seeing him at the Troubadour. He was the hoot master at the Troubadour on a Monday night. And I remember seeing him there, and this was during the early days before we even started the series. This is like when we were doing the pilot and waiting to find out if the series had sold. And I went down to the Troubadour because I knew he was there, and he was running the hootenanny, and he had on the hat.
Okay. It's great if you ever get a chance, Preston. They all have their audition films.
Oh, I've seen them. I love them,
and they're just great. Everyone does a great job, and you see why you all ended up where you were. I wanted to ask you, Mickey, about the film Head, and which was I believe was Jack Nicholson directed, correct?
No, wrote. Jack wrote it. Bob Rafelson, the famous director who became very famous.
Right, 5 Easy Pieces.
Bob Rafelson. Bob Rafelson, who was also one of the co-creators of the Monkees. Him and Bert Schneider, and amongst others, Paul Mazursky wrote the pilot of the Monkees, for instance. But Bob Rafelson was one of the main characters, and directed many episodes, and then introduced Jack to us one day and said, "We want to make a movie." And have you seen the movie?
I've seen it many times. I think it's so
Can you tell me what it's about?
Yes, please.
It is so of its time, and I have a very wonderful nostalgic feeling when I watch it. It is not coherent, and I don't think it's meant to be. But I have to ask, at that time, you have a Nicholson who's got to be like just in and around Easy Rider time, and what was he like at that age?
Well, the same as he's been at every age since I've known him. Just an incredibly charismatic, funny, intelligent guy. When we were introduced to him, he was just doing, B movies as an actor, and wanted to get into writing and doing films. And Bob introduced him to us. This was before Easy Rider. They made, Bob and Bert and Jack and Peter Fonda, of course, and Dennis, they made Easy Rider using some of the money that they had from making the Monkees. And, of course, that altered the whole film landscape, the whole Hollywood film landscape, along with people like Scorsese. And, basically created the independent Hollywood film industry. And, but Jack was ever since I've known him, he's just, like I say, just such a funny guy and a great guy and charismatic,
So singing the national anthem, which can be no matter how accomplished and practiced a performer you are, this always provides, I think, issues for people because it's a tough one. Do you have anything that you're planning on doing? Any sort of mantra? Any way you're approaching it, or you're just going to go in and wing it?
I've done it a few times in the past, a number of years ago, and it is tough. Not only is it a tough melody because it goes an entire octave, but it's the echo, it's the feedback from the speakers in the stadium, and they warned me about it when I did it the first time. This many years ago. And I was like, "Oh, I've heard feedback before. I've heard echo."
Right.
But it is just crazy. Oh, Jose, can you? Oh, Jose.
Yeah. Yeah. I was at an event where a young girl was doing it not that long ago, and it took about 8 minutes for her to finish the song because she just kept drawing it out. It's a tricky thing for a singer,
Well, back when I did it originally, they didn't have monitors, they didn't have in-ear monitors. So now they do. So I should think that it helps a lot, and I have my in-ear monitors all ready to go, and that will help a lot because I can just basically dial out the feedback, the echo, not feedback, echo,
right.
And the delay, it's actually a delay from all the speakers around the stadium. And just dial it out and close my eyes and forge ahead.
It's the way to do it.
The torpedoes.
There's Ron Howard did a great documentary about the Beatles called 8 Days a Week, and it was just basically showing all the documentary of live performances. And they made the point in that documentary that when they played Shea Stadium, they were playing basically over the stadium's sound system. So you guys were not much, later than that in performing in similar situations. What was it like to perform with really what is now dramatically substandard sound?
It was very difficult.
Yeah.
I remember that I ended up, there's no monitors back then. Mm-hmm. And as you say, you were playing over some sort of a sport system, those big metal horns that you used to see around stadiums. The amps, of course, were in line with me or even in front of me, so sometimes I could not hear Mike or Peter or anything going on except what was coming off the back wall. And I'm playing drums and trying to sing many of the leads myself. And so Mike and I worked out a system because I could not hear them over the screens and stuff too. And so Mike and I worked out a system because he was in front of the amps. He could hear me. He could hear himself, of course, and Peter, bass and keyboards. And so we would we set up this system where he would click his heel of one of his boots, and I would use it as a visual.
Oh my God!
Click track. As a visual click track, so I could possibly keep going, and I would just close my eyes. And I still do. I still sing when I sing. Even to this day, I tend to close my eyes, and I'm sure it's because of this experience. I close my eyes. I look at his foot, get the tempo, and then close my eyes and sing, and then open my eyes and check the tempo, and then go back and keep singing. And
that's astonishing.
Yeah, it was tough.
Yeah, I mean, you're basically playing deaf. You're just hoping. You're hoping that it's landing.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Wow.
All right, so Steve had mentioned the the national anthem at the Phillies game. Will you be performing "I'm a Believer" on Sunday as well?
No.
Okay, that's going to be that's at the Neil Diamond tribute.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Right.
Okay. Excellent. Well, I know that there's a special package that was made available that fans are going to be able to sit at the game in one of the suites with you, and the proceeds are going to go to the Make-A-Wish Foundation, which is a really cool thing as well. So, well, listen, Mickey, we wanted to touch base, and years ago, I think we had a chance to talk to you, but we'll say it again. And we're huge fans of the Monkees. It was a pivotal part of growing up, and one of the reasons that I love rock and roll and still do. But thanks for all those years. And it's going to be cool to see you in town in Philly on Sunday, man.
Great. Looking forward to it, guys. Thank
All
you.
right.
By the way, Philly is very special.
Yes.
Very special place for me. My wife's entire family, both sides of her family, live in the Philadelphia area, so I'm here a lot, and I love it.
Awesome. Well, when you're here and have a little bit more time in your schedule, you got to come in and hang, and we'd love to get a longer interview with you.
All right, hang on. We'll try to find a way to contact you again. Thank you so much, Mickey. Have a great weekend, okay?
Thank you.
Excellent.
Bye-bye
You got it.
now.
Micky Dolenz.
Yeah.